Here are 10 ways to get better guests on your podcast. Tip number 1 to getting better guests on your podcast is believe that it's possible. When I first started my show, it was so easy to just write off certain people that I wanted to talk to because it just seemed so impossible that I was ever going to be able to get in a room with them, get on a call with them, let alone get them to agree to sitting down and doing a big podcast interview with me. So it was easy just to not include them, even when I was trying to talk to people and tell them about the people I wanted on my show. Bottom line is, if you don't believe that it's possible, it's not going to fall into your lap. It's not going to happen. So I adopted this mindset at the very beginning of starting my show. And that was, if they have a pulse, that means I can talk to them. All right. Not a great possibility of talking to Winston Churchill on my podcast because of obvious reasons. However, if they are alive, they're living, they're breathing, they have a pulse, it means that there's some way, somehow, that I could probably get in touch with them at some point in the future. And I should probably go ahead and be intentional about getting those people on my show. Tip number 2 for getting better guests on your podcast is to create a list. So once you believe it's possible, now you just start writing those people down and keeping track of this list. If you don't write it down, it's probably not going to happen. Intentionality has a big impact on whether or not you're actually going to make these things come to pass. And if you don't know who you're even going after, how do you know how to go find them? How do you know what if they're going to be at events, or how do you know maybe they're doing an autograph signing, or maybe they're going to be announcing this giveaway or something? You don't even know. If you don't even know who you want to get on the show, how are you ever going to get in touch with them? They're not, again, people are not just going to knock down the door begging to be on your show, especially not the people that you want to have on your show the most. Number 3, the third tip for getting better guests on your podcast is to segment that list. Once you create a list, you want to create segments of that list, okay? Now, those segments are going to be based on certain criteria. So the first couple of criteria would probably be something like, okay, these are dream guests. These are like the untouchables. These are the people that are just the wildest people in the future that I could possibly ever imagine talking to. And you never know, if you're intentional about it, you might be able to actually get some of those done. For me, the first person I ever wrote on my dream list was Shaquille O'Neal. And a few years into doing my show, I was able to have a conversation with Shaq on my show. And it was a really cool full circle moment. But I don't think those things would happen if I weren't intentional about writing it down, even though it seemed impossible at the time. The other segments on your list might just be, okay, maybe this is a group of people maybe that I'm one connection away from. So I'm going to have to get creative and figure out a way to get in touch with them. And it would be really cool if I could have a conversation with them. But I think it's actually really doable and totally possible based on what I already have. And then you're going to have a segment of that list. It's like, these are the for sure yeses. These are the ones that we're starting the show with. These are the people that I know I can go get a yes from, and I know that we're going to have a great conversation. Other than that, segments are going to be circles of people. So, depending on the industry, you want to interview podcasters, make a list of a bunch of podcasters and make sure that those podcasters know each other. And then, if it's athletes, you make a list of athletes and make sure those athletes know each other. So those segments are also going to matter for the circles of the people that they like, the circle of influence that person has, and the circles that those people run in, the people who tend to be at the same events together, the people who tend to collaborate on videos or do interviews with each other already. Like, try to keep those people on the same list, because the number 4 tip for getting better guests on your podcast is to stay in the same circle at first. If you look at your list and you are trying to interview this successful internet marketer that lives in Bali, and then you're also trying to interview this top producing real estate investor that lives in Oklahoma, those two people probably don't know each other. And so once you get one of them to say yes, you can't leverage that person's name to go increase your credibility and trust in the other person's eyes to get it more likely for that person to say yes. However, if you run in the same circle, then it's a little bit easier to start knocking off more names within that one circle or that one industry, because all of those people know each other. And as soon as you get one of them to say yes, it's much easier to get the second one to say yes, because that second person knows the first person. And it's much easier to get the third person to say yes, because that third person knows the first two people. And then once you have 6 of those people, you can basically get anybody in that world. It starts to snowball after a while. And then the difficult jumps start to become going from this circle and then moving into another circle, because now all of a sudden the people in this world, in this circle, they haven't heard of any of the people that have been on your show, even though you might have gotten all the really great people in this world and everybody in this world knows you now. Now you're trying to bridge the gap. And let me tell you, some of the best connections that I've made and some of the best value I've been able to offer to some of my guests is when I can connect circles of people together, because I went from this circle and I went into this circle, and then I tackled this circle, and once I was done with that one, I went and got into this circle. It's always really difficult to jump into a new world. Like when I started trying to interview more stand-up comedians for my podcast, it was really difficult to get the first couple of yeses because they didn't know any of the business people that I had on my podcast because they exist in different worlds. And so what I would look for is some commonality with stand-up comics who I really wanted to get on my show, and then find comics who knew people in the world that I was already in, and also knew the people that I really wanted to get on my show. And then I would try to bridge the gap in those types of ways. So you stay in the same circle, it's going to be easier to get other people in that same circle. Number 5 tip for getting better guests on your podcast is to use all platforms at your disposal. Do not just rely on cold email. Don't just rely on cold Instagram DMs. Don't just rely on comments on Facebook or X or any of these other things. Try each and every one of those things. Exhaust all options when you're doing your reach outs, when you're actually beginning to send messages to people on those platforms. Pro tip: sometimes it's not the platform they're the most active on that has the highest chance of them responding to you because that's the one they're most active on. So the most activity that they have is going to be on that platform. So if they have, 1,000 message requests on Instagram DMs, the odds that they're going to find yours in that stack of 1,000 is probably pretty low. But if they don't have much of a presence over on X, and they're trying to get better on X, and you notice that they're trying to do more content over there and they're trying to gain an audience over there, maybe you'll probably get better results over there if you go repost their post, or you comment on their posts a lot, and you get your face in their feed because they want the engagement on that content. So you can go in there and engage with them and give them a higher reason to see your name all the time, and then shoot them a DM once you're a few months in of engaging with that person. So use all platforms at your disposal. Do not just stick to one platform. Tip number 6 for getting better guests on your podcast is to utilize video. The best results I've ever gotten, typically for me personally, are Instagram DMs when I use the video feature. Video does a couple of things. Number one, it makes people realize that you are not a bot, that you're not just like doing this, bulk generic reach out to 100 people in a day. When you shoot a video, I call them by name and I look at, I say a specific thing about them and their page. Like it would be really difficult to do that on an automated basis. I make it personal and I put myself on video because another reason to do video is that I want them to see that I look like a professional. Even if I'm using my phone and my microphone isn't hooked into my phone, I'll still put my phone right here with my mic in front of me in the background or something, or like with my studio in the background, just so that they know that I'm a professional and that I take this seriously, and that I'm not just some person that's going to waste their time. So I want them to see I'm going to put a smile on my face. I want them to see that that I at least can carry a conversation and communicate properly and clearly. So I'm going to use video for that. Now, don't overuse video because you don't want to send them 7 minutes worth of video. Okay, you just use it to make sure that they know that it's personalized, and then you can actually include the rest of your quote unquote pitch in the text beneath the video that you send. Now on Instagram DMs, another reason to use video is that it's also going to show up as a blue bar in their message requests. It's not going to show up as just text. It's going to be a blue bar and it says play video on it. So that will be a more unique experience when they're looking through all of the DMs that they get. They're more likely to click on one that's going to be that blue bar rather than just looking through a sea of text like they usually get and like the majority of their other DMs are going to be. So use video reach outs. Number 7 tip for getting better guests on your podcast: keep it short. I've gotten numerous pitches for me, people to come on my show or people that are trying to get me on their shows when they send me a book. And I made this mistake at the very beginning as well. I was trying to give them as many reasons as I could for them to say yes without having to go to Google, which is a good idea. It's just that you can't give it all to them in that reach out message because they're not going to go through the whole thing. And people who are really busy, they value one thing, and that's their time. Their time is their most valuable asset. And so if you're already coming in not respecting their time with your reach out, then they're way less likely, first of all, to even read what you sent them. They're probably just going to delete it or archive it and never even read through the whole thing. But if they do, they probably have the idea that you're not going to respect their time if you end up saying yes to the interview. So keep it short and sweet, to the point. Treat it like a old-fashioned tweet when you would write it out and then you'd have to go through and cut as many characters as you can to get it under that character limit. Think about it like that. Write the reach out and then go, what can I remove from this that does not need to be there, and how can I make this really quick and get my point across and then get out. Number 8 tip for getting better guests on your podcast is to leverage credibility. In your reach outs, it's important to leverage credibility. At the very beginning, this is going to be difficult because you don't have much credibility. Okay. I was the same way. When I first started, didn't have much credibility. But once you start reaching out and you get that first yes from a big name, and then you stay in that same circle and you leverage that first name, again, it's much easier to get the second name, and then the fifth name, and then the 12th name, and then the 16th name. And then you have people reaching out to you to book their well-known guests on your podcast because you have relationships with PR firms and things like that. And then now it's extremely easy. Well, I'm not going to say extremely easy. It's still difficult to get big name guests on my show, but it's much easier because I have recognizable people, and like there's almost nobody I reach out to that doesn't know who Shaquille O'Neal is, and gives me immediate credibility. And I can leverage that credibility to make sure that other people know that I'm going to at least take their time seriously and that I'm a professional podcast host. So make sure that you leverage credibility. The goal of the reach out is to try to get them to say yes without having to do further research and taking more of their time to find out more about you. So if you've never heard of Travis Chappell before and you have no idea who I am, but I reach out and ask you to be on my show and I list 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 20 names of people that you already know, like, trust, have done business with, have spoken at events with, or whatever, then your initial reaction isn't even going to be like, how dare this person reach out to me? Your initial reaction is going to be like, how do I not know this guy already? We have so many mutual friends. He's interviewed all my friends. Like, yeah, of course I'll go on your show. They tend not to have to do further research. If all you say is, will you come on my podcast? All it means is that they're going to have to go do further research. They're going to have to go to Google. They're going to have to go to Apple Podcasts. They're going to have to go to YouTube. They're going to find out more about you. That if you have a website, they're going to have to do all of this background research, which first of all, they're probably not going to do. They're probably just going to say no. But even if they do it, then you better hope that you have some things there that's going to stack some evidence of why they should go on your show. Because if you don't, then that's when they're going to be like, okay, well, what do your downloads look like? Send me a screenshot of your analytics. Is this worth my time? And so you want to answer that question, is this worth my time, in the reach out by leveraging as much credibility as you can. The number 9 tip for getting better guests on your podcast is to make one clear request. Only one request, and extremely clear about that request. In this case, your request is going to be, will you please come on my podcast, or something along those lines. Or I would love to, what I usually say is, like, I've been blessed to interview these types of people that have been on my show before, and I would love to add you to the lineup. And it's a very clear, simple request. You can't have multiple asks. You can't, start fanboying or fangirling and then being like, oh man, I'd love to get on a 5-minute call. I'd love to have a virtual cup of coffee. I'd love to do this. Plus, will you come on my podcast? Plus this, plus that. If you ask for a bunch of stuff, the answer is going to be no. Have one ask and make it extremely clear, simple, and concise. Number 10, the last tip for getting better guests on your podcast is to give easy next steps. The call to action should be clear. Hey, I want to interview my podcast. But then what happens from this point forward should also be very clear and simple. So typically I'll send a Calendly link when I was doing all virtual interviews, or I just say reply back and we'll find a time. So I'll say like, if this sounds good to you, then click this link to pick a time in my calendar for a conversation, or simply reply to this email and my assistant will make sure that we get a time booked. So I'm asking them for something and I'm giving them the exact next steps that they need to know in order to figure out what we're going to do from here if they've already made the decision to say yes. And then bonus tip number 11, which I know we're supposed to be 10, but number 11 is for getting better guests in your show. Sometimes you can pay for them. And I know this is a controversial take here, but I'm the founder of Guestio, which is a guest booking marketplace, a show booking marketplace where you can go in and actually pay people to come on your show. And some people think that's odd. I find it to be very similar to a speaking fee. It's not about getting rich. It's not about paying these people to do something they don't want to do. It's a matter of like they have that one question in the back of their mind. The only question that a potential guest has is, will this person waste my time? So one really easy way to make sure that you're not wasting their time is simply to pay for their time. If you pay for their time, they know they're not wasting it and they know that you're going to take their time seriously and put on a professional interview. And sometimes just paying for that first couple to help you increase your credibility, then you can use those names that you paid for to go leverage other names and do more groundwork, bootstrapping reach outs could be the difference between your show doing well in the first 6 months or having to take 3 years to get the same results. So sometimes paying to skip the line is completely worth it, which you can do inside of the Guestio marketplace, or you can talk to to guests specifically and just say, hey, we have a guest booking fee, a guest booking budget, which is typically, 1/5 of your speaker fee or whatever, offer you want to make to that person. But don't think that paying for somebody to be on your show is bad. It's a method. Probably wouldn't overuse it unless you have a massive budget, but it can be really useful in those first few months if you want to skip the line and not have to wait and do as much work as I had to do to get big names to trust me with their time when I first started. So you got to just answer that question. Will this waste my time? And sometimes paying people is the way to answer that question quickly and efficiently. So there you have it. There is 11 tips to getting better guests on your podcast, and you can go get a free guest and show media kit completely for free over at Guestio.com. All you got to do is type in Guestio.com into your search bar and then create an account, and you'll be able to create a free guest media kit to go pitch yourself to podcasts, as well as a free show media kit in order to get better guests on your show when you use when you pitch them on whatever platforms. You can also use Guestio to pitch them as well if you'd like to do that. So get your free media kit over at Guestio.com.